In this training session, we're going to look at the reporting options in EventSentry's ADMonitor, and we're going to start with the web reports. We're going to go to Features, and we're going to look at the ADMonitor section, and we see 5 reports here. The first one are object changes. So any object change that's performed in Active Directory is going to show up here. Then the same for group policy. So any group policy change that occurs will show up here. And then finally, we have 3 status pages for all computers, groups, and users that are in Active Directory. So let's start from the right and let's look at the user report. We can see here in this test domain, we have 5 user accounts. This is the familiar setup of any report in EventSentry. And we're just going to go to the Detail tab, and here we can actually see a list of all the users. You can click a user and get some more details on that user. So we can see here the full path, the login for that user, SAM account first.last, for example, the last time that user was logged on, which is never. I just created that user. And we can also see that the password never expires and that it must change the next logon, for example. This shows you the actual Active Directory attributes. You can also look at the administrator account. Here we can see that the last logon was not too long ago, for example. And we can also see when the password was last set and that it doesn't expire. We can go up here and we see a bunch of built-in reports for ADMonitor. So for example, users with non-expiring passwords. So if you click this, then we can see here that none of those user accounts that we have passwords that expire. There's other ones too, for example, administrative users, and we can see that we have 3 administrative users in the domain. But let's move on to the groups. 48 groups, so that's pretty much what a plain Microsoft Active Directory domain looks like, 48 groups. We can expand this here to 50. And we can scroll down here and look at groups like domain users. Here we have a few members. We can click that user account here and go back to the previous report that we had where we can see the user accounts. Domain admins, we have 3 domain admins here and so forth. So it's a really great way to navigate through Active Directory very fast, efficiently. You cannot make any changes here, but you can certainly view all users, groups, and computers, set up scheduled reports, and so forth. Last one to look at real quick are computers. We can see we have 5 computer accounts here in this domain. Again, we can see when the computer was first created, when it was last used, last logged on, and so forth. So again, very useful if you want to clean up accounts, for example. And then let's look at the object changes here. By default, it's set to the last 24 hours. So let's click on the detailed tab here. So here we can see all the changes that occurred. In a production domain, you're going to see a lot more than this, but this nicely illustrates, what this report looks like. So for example, we can see here that a test OU was created. So again, object class. This is usually the first thing you want to look at. Those 2 fields here. Okay, well, what are we even talking about? Okay, we're talking about an OU that was created. We can see who created it, and we can also click on the on this icon here and see some more details. Scroll down. The security descriptor, unfortunately, is a little big. And then we've got the ADS path here, the name, so it's called test, and it's in the root domain and so forth. You can also see who created that OU, just like we can up here. We can also see that a user was created and deleted immediately, but then created again and then modified with some properties being set. Again, you can click this here and you can see more details here. You can see that the user account control attribute before was normal account, password not required, account disabled, and then it was switched to normal account. You can also expand it here and see some of the changes right there. We can expand the search and say, well, let's look at the last 30 days. Now we have a few more options here. We can see computer accounts being created and other attributes being changed, for example, here. this is a real great way to get insight into what's happening in your Active Directory. Without ADMonitor, there really isn't an easy way to see this type of information. So you never have to kind of guess, did somebody do something? Was a user created? Was an OU created? Who deleted that OU? With ADMonitor, you have a full log of all the changes that happened to Active Directory, along with these neat reports where you can just see all the users in your Active Directory domain and filter on, okay, who are my admin users, who are disabled users, who are users who haven't logged on, and so forth. So it's a really, really handy tool. So that's the part, that's the reporting part in the web reports. But like we mentioned in the other training session, ADMonitor is the only component that has additional utilities. So if we go back here, I mentioned that earlier, we have the viewer and the administrator. And on top of that, if we go to the start menu here, we also have the reporting app here that comes with ADMonitor. So if you don't want to use the web reports for whatever reason, maybe they're unavailable, you didn't install them, then you can also use this ADMonitor reporting app. So this does not rely on the database. And there's, generally speaking, two types of reports you can create. Reports based on changes and reports based on the status. And how that works is, let's say, for example, we want to see domain computers. You will select the report here, and then you will click the Generate button. That will generate the report in the background, and you can view that report now under here where it says Generated Reports. So you click the domain here, and you can see some of the reports here. I had already played around with this a few minutes ago, but here we got 5 line items. All domain computers. This was all domain controllers. Yeah, and you just pull this up. This is just the regular HTML page where you can see all the domain computers on the report. Again, does not require the web reports. And these reports have to be scheduled. So you'd go to some of the schedules here, for example, daily, select which report you would want, who changed what, for example, click OK, and now by default, this report is going to get run at 1 a.m. and then it's going to show up right down here in the list. In most cases, you'll probably want to prefer the reporting in the web reports, because here as well, you can save any sort of search as a report. You can also create a job and get that emailed to you. So, and it's consistent with all the other reporting that we have in EventSentry.